The great chamber of the Galactic Council had seen many strange moments in its 12,000 years of existence. Wars had been declared within these walls. Peace treaties had been signed. Entire species had joined the galactic community, and a few had been expelled forever. But in all that long history, nothing quite like this had ever happened before. The Velthari ambassador stood at the central podium, his scaled skin shimmering under the bright lights. His name was Zorath, and he was a military commander of some importance in the Velthari Dominion. He wore his ceremonial armor with obvious pride, and his voice carried the confidence of someone who had never truly been defeated. The Velthari Dominion formally announces its intention to bring the Sol system under our control, Zorath declared. The human species has shown themselves incapable of proper expansion. They waste resources. They fight among themselves. They have failed to claim their rightful place in the galaxy. We will correct this failure. For a moment, the chamber was completely silent. Then the chaos began. Representatives from dozens of species started shouting at once. Some were angry. Some were confused. But a small number of them, the older ones, the ones whose species had been part of galactic civilization for thousands of years, they did not shout at all. They simply stared at Zorath with expressions that mixed horror and disbelief. Council leader Marathis, a tall being with silver skin and 4 arms, raised all of his hands to call for order. It took several minutes before the noise died down enough for him to speak. Commander Zorath, Marathis said carefully, I must ask you to clarify. You intend to invade Earth, the human homeworld? That is correct, Zorath said. He seemed pleased by the reaction his announcement had caused. He mistook the chaos for impressed surprise. The Dominion has assembled a fleet of 300 warships. We will depart within the standard month. In the upper levels of the chamber, where the elder species kept their seats, quiet conversations were happening. The Andrathi representative, an ancient being named Seleth, who had served on the council for over 2 centuries, leaned toward his assistant. Send word to our colonies near the Sol region, Seleth whispered. Begin evacuation immediately. I want our people at least 50 light years away before the Velthari reach human space. His assistant stared at him. Honored representative, is that truly necessary? The humans have only a small fleet. Their technology is generations behind the Velthari. Seleth closed his eyes. Old memories surfaced, memories he had tried very hard to forget. Just do as I say, and tell our military command to begin defensive preparations along our entire border. If this goes as badly as I fear, we may see refugees from a dozen systems. Down on the main floor, Zorath was still speaking. He had prepared charts and projections. He showed images of human space vessels, pointing out their weaknesses. He displayed maps of the Sol system, marking the locations of human colonies and defensive stations. As you can see, Zorath said, the humans pose no significant military threat. Their ships are slow. Their weapons are primitive. They have expanded to only a handful of systems in 300 years of space travel. Clearly, they lack the ambition and capability to resist a proper military force. Commander Zorath! The voice came from the upper levels. Everyone turned to look. It was Seleth, the Andrathi representative. He was standing now, his ancient body trembling slightly with the effort. I must speak, Seleth said. Council leader Marathis nodded. The representative from Andrath is recognized. Seleth made his way slowly down to the main floor. He walked past Zorath without looking at him and took a position at the secondary podium. When he spoke, his voice was soft, but the chamber's systems carried it to every ear. 214 years ago, Seleth began, the Andrathi Collective made the same mistake the Velthari are about to make. We looked at human space. We saw their slow expansion. We saw their internal conflicts. We saw what appeared to be weakness. He paused, gathering himself. We sent a fleet of 100 ships to claim 3 systems on our shared border. Systems the humans had surveyed but not yet colonized. We thought it would be simple. We thought they would not even fight. Zorath made a dismissive sound. The Andrathi are not the Velthari. Your military capabilities are well known to be limited. You cannot compare your failed attempt to our glorious campaign. Seleth turned to look at the Velthari commander. There was something in his eyes that made Zorath take a small step backward. We lost every ship, Seleth said quietly. Every single one. The battle lasted less than one standard hour. We never even saw what destroyed us. Our sensors detected nothing. Our weapons hit nothing. Ships simply began to explode one after another until none were left. The chamber had gone very quiet. Afterward, Seleth continued, a human vessel approached our border. They returned our survivors, all of them, unharmed. They sent a single message to our government. It said, "We have no quarrel with the Andrathi people. Please do not make us defend ourselves again." Zorath laughed, though the sound was uncertain. A trick. Propaganda. The Andrathi were always prone to exaggeration. Then explain something to me, Seleth said. If humanity is so weak, so primitive, so incapable of expansion, then why have the elder species never attempted to claim their territory? The Sol system sits in a region rich with resources. Their space borders a dozen major powers. In 300 years of contact, not one of the great empires has moved against them. Not one. He looked around the chamber, at the representatives of species far older and more powerful than the Velthari. Ask them why. Ask the consortium of Keth. Ask the Malthori Empire. Ask any species that has existed long enough to know better. Ask them what they know about humanity that the Velthari do not. Council leader Marathis shifted uncomfortably. Representative Seleth raises valid points. Perhaps a more thorough assessment of human capabilities would be wise before any military action is taken. No. Zorath stepped forward, his scales flushing with anger. I will not be lectured by failed species and cautious cowards. The Velthari Dominion does not require the Council's permission to expand. We have made our announcement as a courtesy, nothing more. In 1 month, our fleet departs for Sol. He turned and strode out of the chamber, his guards following close behind. The silence that followed his exit lasted a long time. Finally, a representative from the consortium of Keth stood. The Keth were an insectoid species, ancient and mysterious, known for their vast intelligence networks. Their representative rarely spoke in council sessions. When she did, others listened. The consortium of Keth wishes to make a formal statement, she said. Her voice buzzed slightly, the result of speaking through translation systems. We will be withdrawing all Keth citizens from the 15 systems nearest to Sol space. We advise other species to do the same. May I ask why? Marathis said, though his voice suggested he already knew the answer. Because we remember, the Keth representative said simply. We remember what humans are capable of. We remember what they did during the Shadow War, 4,000 years before they claimed to have discovered faster-than-light travel. We remember the 7 species who tried to conquer Earth before humans officially joined the galactic community. We remember where those species are now. She paused. Nowhere. They are nowhere. They no longer exist. Not one of them. Marathis looked around the chamber. Representatives from dozens of species were already moving toward the exits, speaking urgently into communication devices, giving orders for evacuations that should have begun hours ago. The Council recognizes the gravity of this situation, Marathis said finally. We will formally distance ourselves from the Velthari Dominion's military action. We advise all member species to take appropriate precautions. In his private office, later that night, Marathis received a visitor. It was Seleth, the Andrathi representative. You did not tell them everything, Marathis said, about what the humans did to your fleet. Seleth sat down heavily. He suddenly looked every one of his 400 years. Some things are difficult to speak of, Seleth said. The ships that destroyed our fleet, we never saw them because they were not there. Not in any way we could understand. They struck from somewhere else, some dimension or plane of existence we cannot access. Our scientists studied the wreckage for decades. They found weapon signatures that should not be possible according to our understanding of physics. And the survivors they returned? Unharmed, as I said, but changed. They spoke of being held in perfect comfort in spaces that seemed to exist outside normal reality. The humans treated them with kindness, fed them well, answered their questions honestly. Seleth shook his head. That was the most frightening part. They were not cruel. They were not angry. They simply demonstrated with absolute clarity that they could have destroyed us utterly and chose not to. Marathis was quiet for a long moment. Why do they hide? He asked finally. If they are so powerful, why pretend to be weak? Why allow species like the Velthari to believe they can be conquered? Seleth looked out the window at the stars. I asked that question once, he said. Years after the battle, I was part of a diplomatic mission to Earth. I met with a human official, and I asked her directly, why do you hide what you are? What did she say? Seleth smiled, but there was no happiness in it. She said that power is a responsibility. She said that if humanity revealed its true capabilities, every species in the galaxy would either fear them or try to steal their technology. Wars would be fought, civilizations would fall, so instead they chose to remain quiet, to watch, to help where they could without being seen, to let the galaxy grow and develop on its own. He turned back to Marathis. She said that someday, when the galaxy was ready, humanity would step forward. But until then, they would wait. They would tend their garden in secret and hope that the seeds they planted would grow into something worth revealing themselves for. Marathis thought about the Velthari fleet, 300 ships filled with soldiers who believed they were about to win an easy victory. And the Velthari? He asked. Seleth stood and walked toward the door. The Velthari will learn the same lesson we did, he said. I only hope, for their sake, that the humans are still feeling patient. The Velthari invasion fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. 300 warships, each one bristling with weapons, each one crewed by soldiers who had been told this would be the easiest conquest in Velthari history. Commander Zorath stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominant Will, watching the stars settle into normal patterns after the jump. Around him, his officers worked at their stations, running sensor sweeps and establishing formation protocols. Report, Zorath ordered. All ships have arrived safely, Commander, his second officer said. Formation is holding. We are approximately 12 light hours from Earth. Enemy contact? None, Commander. No vessels detected. No defensive stations. No orbital platforms. The officer paused, checking his readings twice. Nothing at all. Zorath allowed himself a small smile. The fools at the Galactic Council had tried to frighten him with stories and legends. They had spoken of ancient wars and disappeared species. But here was the truth, right in front of him. The humans had nothing. They were defenseless. Begin the advance, Zorath commanded. Standard invasion formation. We will reach Earth within the day. The fleet moved forward, 300 ships cutting through the darkness of space. They passed the outer regions of the system, where frozen rocks tumbled in endless orbits around the distant sun. Sensors showed nothing of interest. No mining stations, no communication relays, no sign of human presence at all. Commander, the sensor officer said, I am reading some unusual gravitational fluctuations near the sixth planet, the one the humans call Saturn. Unusual how? I cannot explain it, Commander. The readings do not match any natural phenomenon in our databases. It could be some kind of sensor malfunction. Ignore it. Continue the advance. The fleet pushed deeper into the system. They passed the fifth planet, a massive gas giant with swirling storms visible even from their distance. Still nothing. No resistance. No warnings. The humans seemed completely unaware that an invasion fleet was approaching their home. Then the first message arrived. It appeared on every communication channel simultaneously, overriding all Velthari encryption and security protocols. The voice that spoke was calm, almost pleasant, and it spoke perfect Velthari with a slight accent that made the words feel somehow more serious. Attention Velthari vessels. You have entered restricted space. The Sol system is protected territory under the Terran Compact. You are advised to reverse course immediately. This is your first warning. Zorath stared at the communication panel. For a moment, he was too surprised to respond. Then anger replaced his confusion. How did they access our channels? He demanded. Unknown, Commander. Our encryption should be unbreakable. They should not even be able to detect our communication frequencies. Trace the signal. Find out where it came from. His officers worked frantically at their stations. After several minutes, the sensor officer looked up with an expression of deep concern. Commander, the signal did not come from any single location. It came from everywhere. Every point in space around us, simultaneously. That should be impossible. Ignore it, Zorath said again, though his voice was less certain now. It is a bluff. They are trying to frighten us. Continue the advance. The fleet moved on. They were passing through the asteroid belt now, millions of rocks spinning through space between the inner and outer planets. Perfect hiding places, Zorath thought. If the humans had any defenses, they would be here. But his sensors showed nothing, just rocks and ice and empty space. Commander, we have lost contact with Scout Wing 7. Zorath turned sharply. Explain. They were running ahead of the main fleet as ordered. Their signals simply stopped. All 12 ships at the same moment. Destroyed? Unknown, Commander. There was no weapon fire, no explosions, no debris. They simply vanished. A cold feeling began to grow in Zorath's stomach. He pushed it down. Sensor malfunction. These asteroids are interfering with our equipment. Continue the advance. But within the hour, Scout Wing 3 also vanished. Then Scout Wing 12. Then the destroyer group that had been sent to investigate the disappearances. 40 ships gone, with no explanation, no evidence of attack, no sign of what had happened to them. The second message came as they cleared the asteroid belt. Attention, Velthari vessels. This is your second warning. 37 of your ships have been detained. Their crews are unharmed and will be returned to Velthari space after your withdrawal. You are advised to reverse course immediately. Further advance will result in additional detentions. Detained, not destroyed. The word echoed in Zorath's mind. It suggested capabilities he did not want to think about. How did you detain a starship? How did you make an entire destroyer group simply vanish without a trace? Commander, his second officer said quietly, perhaps we should consider the warnings. No. Zorath gripped the edge of his command chair. This is exactly what they want. They want us to run. They want us to spread fear about human power. It is all theater, nothing more. With respect, Commander, 40 ships are gone, and 260 remain, more than enough to conquer a single planet. Continue the advance. They continued. The fourth planet, Mars, came into view. It was a small world, red and dusty, with signs of human colonization visible from orbit. Domes and structures dotted its surface. Ships moved in orbit around it. Finally, signs of life. Target the orbital installations, Zorath ordered. Destroy them as we pass. Let the humans know we are here. But before his weapons officers could fire, the ships in Mars' orbit simply disappeared. One moment they were there, visible on sensors. The next moment, nothing. And in their place, something else appeared. It was a human vessel, just one, where moments before there had been dozens. But it was like no ship Zorath had ever seen. It had no visible engines, no obvious weapons, no recognizable design elements at all. It was simply a smooth, dark shape that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Analysis, Zorath demanded. Cannot analyze, Commander. Our sensors are not returning coherent data. It is as if the ship exists in a way our equipment cannot process. The third message came directly from the strange vessel. Commander Zorath, I am Admiral Chen of the Terran Defense Force. I am going to make this very simple for you. Turn your fleet around and go home. This is your final warning. Zorath found his voice. Admiral Chen, you are addressing the commander of 300 Velthari warships. You have one vessel. Your threats are meaningless. I have one vessel that you can see, Commander, and you no longer have 300 ships. You have 263. Would you like to have fewer? As if to emphasize her point, 5 more Velthari ships simply vanished from the fleet. No weapons fire, no explosions. They were simply there, and then they were not. How are you doing this? Zorath demanded. That is not your concern, Commander. Your concern is what will happen if you continue forward. Right now, your missing crews are being held in comfortable facilities. They are confused and frightened, but they are safe. They will remain safe as long as you withdraw. But if you attack Earth, if you fire even one weapon at our world, I cannot promise the same restraint. You expect me to believe that you have somehow captured 60 ships without firing a weapon? I expect you to believe the evidence of your own sensors, Commander. 60 of your ships are gone. Your weapons cannot touch us. Your sensors cannot see us properly. You have no idea what you are facing. The intelligent choice is to withdraw and preserve what remains of your fleet. Zorath stared at the dark ship on his display. Everything he knew about warfare, everything he had learned in decades of military service, told him that this was impossible. Ships did not simply disappear. Enemies did not capture vessels without fighting. War had rules, and the humans were breaking all of them. But the fear was growing stronger now, and no amount of anger could push it away completely. "Commander," his second officer said, "we should consider retreat. We can report back to the Dominion, gather more forces, return when we understand what we are facing." "Retreat?" Zorath turned on him. "You would have me run from a single ship? I would have you survive, Commander. Something is very wrong here. The stories the Andrathi told, about ships they could not see, about weapons they could not understand, I think they may have been true." Before Zorath could respond, the dark human ship moved. It did not accelerate in any normal sense. It simply changed position, appearing directly in front of the dominant will, as if distance meant nothing to it. "Commander Zorath," Admiral Chen's voice was patient, almost kind. "I am going to show you something. Consider it a gift, so that you understand what you are dealing with." A view screen activated on the bridge, overriding Velthari systems without effort. It showed a region of space Zorath did not recognize, stars and planets in the endless dark of the void. But there, floating among the rocks and debris, were the wrecks of ships, hundreds of them, thousands perhaps. Ships of designs Zorath had never seen, belonging to species he could not identify. "This is what we call the Memorial Field," Admiral Chen explained. "It contains the remains of 7 invasion fleets, representing 7 species who made the same mistake you are about to make. Some of these wrecks are 4,000 years old. Some are much older. They came to conquer Earth. They found something else instead." The image shifted, showing the wrecks in greater detail. Zorath could see the damage now. Clean holes punched through hulls, entire sections of ships simply missing, as if cut away by tools too precise to imagine. "Your fleet can join them, Commander, or you can turn around, collect your people from our detention facilities, and go home with a story to tell. The choice is yours. You have 1 hour to decide." The view screen went dark. The human ship remained where it was, motionless, watching. Zorath looked at the faces of his officers. He saw fear there, fear and uncertainty, and the dawning realization that everything they had believed about this mission was wrong. "Commander," his second officer said quietly, "what are your orders?" Zorath did not answer. He was staring at the dark ship outside his window, thinking about the wrecks in that memorial field, thinking about the 40 ships that had simply vanished, thinking about all the warnings he had ignored. For the first time in his long military career, Commander Zorath did not know what to do. The hour passed slowly on the bridge of the dominant will. Commander Zorath spent most of it staring at the dark human ship that hung motionless in space before them. His officers moved quietly around him, running sensor sweeps that returned nothing useful, checking systems that could not explain what they were seeing. In the end, Zorath made his decision. "All ships, prepare for attack," he announced. "We will not be frightened by tricks and illusions. We are Velthari. We do not retreat." His second officer stepped forward, his voice low and urgent. "Commander, please reconsider. We have already lost 60 ships. We do not understand their technology. We cannot fight what we cannot see." "Then we will die with honor," Zorath said. "But I do not believe we will die. The humans are bluffing. They must be. No species possesses the kind of power they are claiming. It is not possible." "The Andrathi believe the same thing, Commander." Zorath ignored him. He opened a fleet-wide channel. "All vessels, target the human ship. Fire on my command." The fleet positioned itself, 260 warships spreading into attack formation. Weapons charged, targeting systems locked onto the dark shape that seemed to drink in all light around it. "Fire!" 260 ships unleashed their weapons simultaneously. Plasma beams, kinetic rounds, guided missiles, and nuclear-tipped torpedoes crossed the space between the fleet and the human vessel. It was enough firepower to crack a small moon. None of it hit. The weapons simply stopped. Not exploded, not deflected. They stopped, hanging motionless in space, frozen in place as if time itself had been paused for them alone. "What is happening?" Zorath demanded. "Why are our weapons not reaching the target?" "Unknown, Commander. It appears that our projectiles have been somehow suspended in space. They are not moving. They are not reacting. They are simply there. Admiral Chen's voice came over the communication channel. She did not sound angry. She sounded disappointed. You should not have done that, Commander. I gave you a chance to leave. I showed you what would happen if you attacked, and yet you fired anyway. Your tricks do not frighten me, Zora said, though his voice shook slightly. They should. There was a pause. Very well. Let me show you what we have been holding back. The dark ship finally moved, but it did not move like any vessel Zorath had ever seen. It seemed to fold space around itself, appearing in multiple places at once, existing in ways that made his eyes hurt to look at. And then other ships appeared alongside it. Dozens of them, hundreds. An entire fleet that had been invisible until this moment. This is 1% of Earth's actual defensive capability, Admiral Chen said calmly. We have kept the rest hidden because we did not want to frighten you too badly, but perhaps you need to see a little more. The human ships opened fire, not with plasma or missiles or any weapon Zorath recognized. They fired something else, something that his sensors could not identify at all. It appeared as dark lines across space, connecting human ships to Velthari vessels. Ships began to fall silent, not destroyed, not damaged, just silent. Their engines stopped. Their weapons powered down. Their communication systems went dark. One by one, vessel after vessel, the Velthari fleet was being turned off like a series of lights. "What are you doing to my ships?" Zora screamed. "Disabling them," Admiral Chen replied. "We are removing power from their systems. Their crews are perfectly safe. They will simply float until we collect them." Within 11 minutes, it was over. 260 Velthari warships drifted silently in the void around Mars, their crews alive but completely helpless. Only the dominant will remained active. Protected, Zorath realized, because the humans wanted to keep talking to him. "Commander Zorath," Admiral Chen said, and now her voice carried a weight that made him feel very small. "You are defeated. Your fleet is captured. Your invasion has failed. Now we will have a conversation about what happens next." A new image appeared on his view screen. It showed the dominant will from outside, and standing in space beside it, without any visible suit or vessel, was a human figure. Admiral Chen, somehow surviving in the vacuum of space, as if it were nothing more than a mild inconvenience. "I am going to come aboard now," she said. "Please do not try to fight me. It would be embarrassing for both of us." The airlock of the dominant will opened without any of the crew touching it. Lights flickered. Systems that should have been secure suddenly responded to commands that were not coming from Velthari officers. And then Admiral Chen walked onto the bridge, a woman of medium height with dark hair and calm eyes, wearing a simple uniform that bore no rank insignia at all. Zorath's guards raised their weapons. Chen did not even glance at them. "Your weapons will not fire," she said. "I have disabled them. Please lower them before someone strains a muscle." The guards pulled their triggers. Nothing happened. Slowly, they lowered their useless guns. Chen walked to the center of the bridge and stood before Zorath. She was smaller than him by half, lacking the scales and muscles that made Velthari warriors so intimidating. But there was something in her eyes that made him want to look away. "You are going to go home now," Chen said. "All of you. We will restore power to your ships and return your captured crews. You will travel back to Velthari space and report to your leaders. And you will tell them something very important." "What?" Zorath managed to ask. "Tell them that humanity chose not to destroy you. Tell them that we could have killed every member of your fleet in the first minute of this engagement. Tell them that the only reason you are alive is because we believe in second chances." "Why?" The question escaped before Zorath could stop it. "Why spare us? We came to conquer your world. We came to enslave your people. Why would you let us live?" Chen studied him for a long moment before answering. "Because we have been where you are, Commander. Thousands of years ago, before we learned better, we were a species that solved problems through conquest and war. We fought each other. We killed each other. We nearly destroyed ourselves more than once." She moved to the viewport and looked out at the disabled Velthari fleet. "But then we learned something important. Power without restraint is just destruction. Anyone can build weapons. Anyone can win through force. The real challenge, the thing that separates civilization from barbarism, is choosing not to use that power when you have it. So you are simply going to let us leave? After we attacked you? Yes. Chen turned back to face him. Because killing you teaches nothing. It just creates more enemies, more resentment, more wars in the future. But letting you live, letting you go home with the knowledge of what you faced here, that teaches something. It plants a seed. Zorath shook his head. I do not understand you. I do not understand any of this. You will eventually. Or your children will. Or your children's children. Humanity has learned to be patient. She smiled slightly, and for a moment she looked almost gentle. We have also learned that the best victories are the ones where nobody has to die. She began to walk toward the airlock, then paused. One more thing, Commander. When you give your report to the Galactic Council, and you will be required to give a report, I want you to include a message from humanity. What message? Tell them that we are ready to stop hiding. Tell them that we have been watching the galaxy for a very long time, waiting to see if it was ready for us. Tell them that we have decided based on recent events that perhaps the time has come to step forward. And what does that mean? It means that Earth will be sending a delegation to the Council. Not as observers, not as minor members, as equals. She held his gaze. Tell them that humanity is coming and that we come in peace. But tell them also that peace is a choice we make because we want to, not because we have to. She left the bridge. Minutes later, power returned to the disabled Velthari ships. Communication channels reopened. The captured crews appeared on docking platforms, confused but unharmed, just as the humans had promised. Commander Zorath stood on his bridge and watched as his broken fleet began the long journey home. He thought about everything he had seen, the ships that appeared from nowhere, the weapons that stopped in mid-flight, the admiral who walked through space as if it were a garden path, and he thought about the message he would have to deliver. A message that would change everything the galaxy believed about humanity, about power, about the meaning of strength. Behind him, Earth turned slowly in the darkness, a blue and green jewel that had just revealed itself to be far more than anyone had ever imagined. And somewhere in the void, unseen human vessels watched the Velthari fleet retreat, patient and silent, waiting to see what would happen next. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so full. Representatives from every member species had come, along with observers from a dozen non-member civilizations. News of the Velthari disaster had spread across the galaxy in days, and everyone wanted to hear the truth from Commander Zorath himself. He stood at the central podium, no longer wearing his ceremonial armor. He had removed it during the journey home and had not put it on again. Somehow it felt wrong to wear symbols of military pride after what he had experienced. 300 ships, Zorath began. His voice was quiet and the chamber systems had to amplify it so that everyone could hear. We arrived at the Sol system with 300 ships. We believed we were facing a primitive species, a civilization that had barely mastered interstellar travel. We were wrong. He told them everything. The ships that vanished without a trace, the weapons that stopped in mid-flight, the fleet that appeared from nowhere, the 11-minute battle that left his entire force disabled without a single human casualty. They could have killed us all, Zorath said. Admiral Chen made that very clear. Our weapons did not function. Our ships did not respond to our commands. We were completely at their mercy, and they chose mercy. The chamber was silent. Council Leader Marathas finally spoke. Commander Zorath, are you saying that humanity possesses military technology far beyond what they have shown to the galactic community? I am saying that what they have shown us is a lie, Zorath replied. A deliberate deception, maintained for reasons I still do not fully understand. The humans I faced were not 300 years advanced. They were not even 3,000 years advanced. I do not have words for what they are. Seleth, the Andrathi representative, rose from his seat in the upper levels. Now perhaps the council will believe what some of us have known for a very long time. He made his way to the secondary podium. He moved slowly, but there was a purpose in his steps that made everyone watch him. 200 years ago, I tried to warn this council about humanity. I was ignored. dismissed as a bitter old fool, still angry about a defeat. But I was not angry, I was frightened, and I have been frightened every day since. Representative Seleth, Maratha said, you have knowledge that you have not shared with the council? I have knowledge that the council was not ready to hear. Perhaps now, after the Velthari have learned the same lesson my people learned, you will listen. Seleth activated a display system. Images appeared in the air above the chamber, projections of ancient documents, star maps and recordings that looked impossibly old. Humanity claims to have discovered faster-than-light travel 300 standard years ago. This is a lie. We have evidence, hidden in archives that few remember exist, that humans were traveling between stars at least 3,000 years before that date. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Seleth continued. During the Shadow War 4,000 years ago, a conflict that nearly destroyed a dozen species in the Outer Rim, there are records of unknown vessels intervening in key battles. Ships that appeared from nowhere, disabled weapons of mass destruction, and vanished without making contact. At the time, we did not know who they were. Now we do. He changed the image. It showed a planet, barren and dead, covered in the ruins of what had once been a great civilization. This is the homeworld of the Kathrani. They no longer exist as a species. 700 years ago, they attempted to exterminate the people of a neighboring system using a biological weapon. The weapon was never deployed. Their entire fleet disappeared before it could reach its target. 2 months later, their civilization collapsed from within. They claim it was internal conflict, but the timing is suspicious, is it not? Another image, another dead world. The Malthori. They plan to use gravitational weapons to collapse a star and destroy 6 inhabited systems. Their research facilities were destroyed in what they reported as an industrial accident. Every scientist involved died. Every piece of data was lost. Another image. The Consortium of Keth. They developed an artificial intelligence designed to control all network systems in the galaxy. It would have given them power over every species with computer technology. The AI destroyed itself 3 days before activation. The Keth have never explained how this happened. The Keth representative shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing. Seleth turned off the display. For thousands of years, humanity has been watching us, guiding us, protecting us from our own worst impulses. They have stopped wars before they could begin. They have prevented genocides that no one else knew were planned. They have been the gardeners of this galaxy, and we never even knew it. The chamber erupted. Representatives shouted questions, demanded explanations, accused Seleth of spreading conspiracy theories. But Marathis called for order, and slowly the noise died down. If what you say is true, Marathis said carefully, then humanity has been manipulating galactic civilization for millennia. That is not the behavior of a benevolent protector. That is the behavior of a hidden controller. Is it? Seleth asked. Consider what they could have done instead. With their technology, they could have conquered every species in the galaxy. They could have ruled openly, enforcing their will through force. Instead, they stayed hidden. They intervened only to prevent the worst outcomes. They allowed us to make our own choices, to fight our own wars, to build our own civilizations. They only acted when we were about to destroy ourselves. But why? Marathis pressed. Why go to such lengths to remain hidden? Because they did not want us to depend on them. The voice came from the back of the chamber. Everyone turned. A human stood there. No one had seen her enter. She was tall, with gray hair and sharp eyes, and she wore the same simple uniform that Commander Zorath had described Admiral Chen wearing. My name is Secretary General Okonkwo, the human said. I represent the Terran Compact. I apologize for arriving unannounced, but I felt it was important to answer your questions directly. She walked toward the central podium. As she passed Commander Zorath, she nodded to him politely. He stepped aside, still too stunned to speak. Representative Seleth is correct, Okonkwo said. Humanity discovered faster-than-light travel approximately 7,000 standard years ago. We have been present in this galaxy for far longer than we have admitted. She let that sink in before continuing. When we first expanded beyond our home system, we were not so different from the Velthari. We were aggressive, ambitious. We believed that power was meant to be used, that strength justified conquest. We found other species and we treated them as obstacles or resources. What changed? Marathis asked. We nearly destroyed ourselves. Not once, but many times. Wars that killed billions. Weapons that poisoned our own worlds. Hatred that drove us to madness. Each time we pulled back from the edge, but just barely. She paused. Eventually we realized that we were the problem. Our technology advanced faster than our wisdom. We had the power to reshape the galaxy, but we lacked the judgment to use that power responsibly. So you chose to hide. We chose to learn. We spent centuries studying our own history, trying to understand what made us so dangerous. And we spent centuries watching the galaxy, trying to understand if the same patterns existed in other species. And what did you find? Seleth asked. That they did. Every species we encountered followed the same path. Expansion, conflict, near destruction, recovery, and then the cycle again. Some species broke the cycle and grew wise. Others destroyed themselves, and a few became so dangerous that they threatened everyone around them. The species in the memorial field, Zoreth said quietly. Yes. Okonkwo nodded. Those were species that would not stop, that could not be reasoned with, that would have destroyed other civilizations if they had been allowed to continue. We gave them every chance to change. When they refused, we acted. You destroyed them. We ended their capacity to harm others. In most cases, the species themselves survived. They simply lost the technology and the organization needed to wage interstellar war. They returned to their homeworlds and started over. Some of them eventually rejoined the galactic community, much wiser than before. The chamber was very quiet. Finally, Marathis spoke. Why reveal yourselves now? After thousands of years of hiding, why come forward? Okonkwo smiled, and it was a warm expression, almost grandmotherly. Because you are ready, or at least you are close to ready. The Velthari invasion was a test, though they did not know it. We wanted to see how the Council would respond. Would you support the invasion? Would you try to stop it? Would you warn humanity even though we appeared weak and defenseless? Many of us tried to warn them, Marathis said. We know. We watched. We listened. And we were pleased. Okonkwo looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives from a dozen species. This generation is different from those that came before. You are beginning to value cooperation over conquest. You are beginning to understand that the galaxy is large enough for everyone. You are beginning to grow wise. And so you are here to guide us further? No. Okonkwo shook her head. We are here to offer partnership, not control, not guidance. Simple partnership between equals. We will share our technology, our knowledge, our understanding of the universe. In return, we ask only that you continue on the path you have started. Continue to choose peace over war. Continue to value life over power. Continue to be better than your ancestors. Seleth stepped forward. And if we refuse? If we reject your partnership and choose to go our own way? Okonkwo turned to face him. Then we will return to watching and waiting. We will not force ourselves on you. We have learned that lesson too. Partnership must be chosen freely, or it is not partnership at all. The old Andrathi studied her for a long moment. Then slowly he bowed his head. I have waited 200 years for this moment, he said. 200 years of knowing the truth and being unable to speak it. 200 years of watching the galaxy stumble toward wisdom, wondering if it would ever arrive. He looked up again. I believe we are ready, or at least, I hope we are. Okonkwo placed a hand on his shoulder. Hope is enough, Representative Seleth. Hope is always enough. The formal ceremony took place 3 days later. The Galactic Council chamber had been rearranged for the occasion, with a new podium installed at the center to represent Earth's position as a full member of the galactic community. Representatives from every species filled the seats, and for the first time in anyone's memory, the observation galleries were packed with citizens who had traveled from across the galaxy to witness history. Secretary General Okonkwo stood at the new podium, flanked by a small group of human advisors. She wore formal robes now, deep blue with gold trim, though her manner remained as calm and unpretentious as it had been during her first appearance. On behalf of the Terran Compact, she said, I accept the invitation of the Galactic Council to join this assembly as a full and equal member. We come not as conquerors or controllers, but as neighbors who have finally decided to knock on your door." Polite laughter rippled through the chamber. It was strange, some representatives thought, how quickly the fear of humanity was fading. 3 days ago, they had been terrified of what the humans could do. Now they were laughing at the human leaders' jokes. "We bring gifts," Okonkwo continued. "Not weapons, though we could provide those. Not warships, though we have many to spare. We bring something more valuable. Knowledge. Medical knowledge that can extend your lives and cure diseases you thought were death sentences. Scientific knowledge that can help you understand the universe in ways you never imagined. And perhaps most importantly, historical knowledge. The records of our own mistakes so that you can avoid repeating them." She activated a display system. Images appeared in the air, showing blueprints for technologies the Council had never seen. Medical devices, energy systems, transportation networks. Each one labeled clearly, with instructions for construction and use. "These are freely given," Okonkwo said. "We ask nothing in return except that you use them wisely. Some of these technologies could be weapons if you wanted them to be. We trust that you will choose otherwise." Council Leader Marathis rose from his seat. "Secretary General Okonkwo, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I accept your gifts with gratitude. But I must ask the question that I know weighs on many minds here today. Why? Why do you trust us so freely? Why share your secrets with species that, only days ago, were trying to invade your world?" Okonkwo smiled. "Because trust must start somewhere. If we demanded proof of your worthiness before sharing anything, we would be treating you as subjects, not partners. That is not who we want to be. But surely there is risk. Some species might use your gifts for harm. There is always risk. That is part of being alive. But we have learned something important over our long history. Fear is a cage. If you make all your decisions based on what might go wrong, you never do anything at all. You just sit in your corner of the galaxy, watching, waiting, never actually living." She looked around the chamber. "For thousands of years, that is what we did. We hid, we watched, we intervened only when necessary. We told ourselves it was wisdom, but truthfully, it was fear. Fear that the galaxy was not ready for us. Fear that we would make things worse instead of better. Fear that we would become the tyrants we had fought so hard not to be. What changed? You did." Okonkwo gestured toward the assembled representatives. "Not overnight, not dramatically, but slowly over centuries we watched the galaxy grow. We saw species that had been at war for generations finally make peace. We saw empires that had built themselves on conquest choose instead to build themselves on trade and cooperation. We saw individuals sacrifice their own power for the good of others." She paused. "And we realized that if we waited until everyone was perfect, we would wait forever. No species is perfect, not even humanity. The question is not whether you have flaws. The question is whether you are trying to be better. And you are. All of you, in your own ways, are trying." Commander Zorath stood. He had been given a seat of honor near the front of the chamber, despite his recent status as an invader. The humans had insisted on it. "May I speak?" he asked. Marathis nodded. Zorath moved to the secondary podium. He looked older than he had a week ago, as if the experience had aged him decades in days. "I came to this system to conquer," he said simply. "I believed humanity was weak. I believed they were beneath the Velthari. I believed that power existed to be used, and that the strong had the right to rule the weak." He turned to face Okonkwo. "You taught me something different, not through lectures or sermons, through action. You had the power to destroy my fleet. You chose not to. You had the power to kill my soldiers. You chose not to. You had the power to humiliate me and my people. Instead, you returned our crews unharmed and sent us home with a message of hope." He bowed his head. "The Velthari Dominion has spent the past 3 days in deep discussion. Our military council has met continuously since my return, and we have reached a decision." The chamber held its breath. "The Velthari Dominion formally renounces aggressive expansion. We will maintain defensive forces, but we will no longer seek to conquer other species or claim territory by force. We do this not because we are afraid of human power, though we certainly are. We do this because you have shown us a better way. He raised his head and met Okonkwo's eyes. If humanity can possess the power to rule the galaxy and choose not to, then surely the Velthari can learn to do the same. We ask to be among the first to join your Terran compact. We ask to learn from your example. Okonkwo walked to where Zorath stood. She was much smaller than him, a fact that seemed absurd given everything that had happened. But she reached up and placed her hand on his shoulder. Commander Zorath, the Velthari are exactly the kind of partners we were hoping to find. Species who are willing to change. Species who can admit their mistakes and choose differently. You are welcome in the compact. The chamber erupted in applause. Representatives who had been mortal enemies stood side by side, united by the strange turn of events that had brought them here. Later, after the ceremony, after the speeches and the toasts and the signing of documents, Seleth found Okonkwo standing alone on a balcony overlooking the great plaza below. Thousands of beings moved through the space, representatives and citizens and tourists all mingling together. "May I join you?" Seleth asked. "Of course." They stood in silence for a while, watching the crowd. "I have waited a very long time for this day," Seleth said finally. "Sometimes I thought it would never come." "I know. We watched you, Representative Seleth. We knew you were keeping our secret, even when no one believed you. We are grateful. Why did you not contact me directly? All those years knowing the truth and being unable to prove it. You could have helped me." Okonkwo turned to face him. "Because the truth had to come out naturally. If we had revealed ourselves too soon, before the galaxy was ready, it would have caused chaos, fear, war perhaps. You were our secret keeper, even though you did not know it. You kept the memory of what humanity could be alive in the minds of those who would listen. And now? Now the work truly begins. Not the work of hiding and watching. The work of building something new. A galaxy where species cooperate instead of compete. Where power is used to protect instead of conquer. Where the mistakes of the past are not repeated." Seleth looked out at the crowd below. "It sounds impossible." "It probably is," Okonkwo agreed. "But we have learned that impossible things happen all the time. You just have to work at them long enough." She smiled at him, and in that smile, Seleth saw something he had never expected to see in a human face. Patience, deep, endless patience. The kind that could wait for centuries, for millennia if necessary, for the seeds it planted to finally bear fruit. "Come," Okonkwo said, turning back toward the chamber. "There is much to do, and for the first time in 7,000 years, we do not have to do it alone." They walked back together, the ancient Andrathi and the human leader, two beings from different species and different times who had somehow arrived at the same moment of hope. Behind them, the stars wheeled slowly overhead, unchanged and unchanging. But below, in the streets and chambers and ships of 100 worlds, something new was being born. A galaxy that was finally learning what humanity had learned so long ago. That true strength is not measured by what you can destroy. It is measured by what you choose to build instead.